Hi, Mike Mulligan here again. I'm a whistleblower and nuclear safety advocate. I live 2 miles from Vermont Yankee. And so we're talking about Arkansas One, remember just a little while ago, and the systemic problems with energy. As an example, all the troubles with Pilgrim. And so the most recent inspection report, Grand Gulf had 8 inspection violations. You know, how come it takes the NRC to find all them violations? How come Energy can't find them all themselves? Why does it take an agency to do the work for them? Cooper has 11. I mean, that's the bad boy out of the whole bunch. I mean, Energy doesn't even own Cooper. They just manage the Cooper plant. But why in the world does it take a NRC to do that kind of stuff, finding all these violations? Well, how come Energy can't do it on their own? How come the NRC has to hold these guys' hands and discover violations for them? Why aren't they self-discovering of violations, right? How come that isn't a part of their DNA to make sure that they don't have any of these violations and stuff? And you know, these aren't. And if you know anything about plants, these are just the minimum. Everybody knows that these are just the minimum. They haven't caught them all. And Arkansas One has nine violations. And so you know what I'm getting into? A plant like I'll give you any. Cooper got into no, wait a minute. Grand Gulf got into, what is that? They had electrical troubles or something like that. And then, you know, the plant has a trip, and then they have a special inspection, and any plant in the United States has this. So they'll get into a problem, and it'll be visible enough and a bad enough accident, and then the inspectors will come in droves and TVA, Palisades, Fort Calhoun, and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, you know, all these inspectors will find all these violations underlying all these poor performing plants. You know what I'm saying? You know, how come they can't find these inspection problems? The plant themselves can't find it. How come they don't have a A+ rating as far as not having any violations? How come a bad plant gets into trouble and they have an accident, and then the NRC comes in there and finds many violations of one order or another with equipment and people and procedures and stuff? I mean, it's a cesspool of errors and violations and stuff like that. You know, how come you ever can't get a plant that just has a bad accident, a bad day, and has an accident and stuff like that, and you don't get any violations? You know what I'm saying? It's a clean plant, and it was just a roll of the dice. How come all the time and increasingly we find these plants in terrible shape? An accident happens, and the place was like Davis Bessie after the accident, where the NRC comes in and finds a slew of it was an A+ plant before the accident, apparently, as far as the agency seen it. Then afterwards there were a runaway plant with a terrible plant safety culture. You know, how come? Am I the only one? Am I crazy or what? So anyways, let's go see if we can, you know, let's go see if we can go fishing. This is Grand Gulf. Let's just go see if I can tell you what I mean. Okay, the first violation. Let's see, Grand Gulf. They got 8. The inspectors have identified a non-cited violations of 10 CFR 50. They failed to evaluate risk significances and develop action plans to address equipment identified during the extent of condition review of post-SCRAM root cause analysis. The extent of condition review of post-scram root cause analysis. So they must have had too many damn scrams, like Pilgrim has. But they didn't do a thorough enough investigation. How come this is a garden variety fault with energy? They don't do a thorough enough evaluation of problems and stuff like that. They don't really get to what's the important thing here and have a thorough investigation and then change the organization. It's always the most shallow shot at it. So there's one. Inspectors reviewed for the licensee's failure to complete preventative maintenance task on the high-pressure core spray Division 3 diesel generator output breaker in accordance with the corresponding preventative maintenance tasks template. And again, it's garden variety. They have these kind of maintenance problems all the time. And the NRC catches them up on it, and they can't do it on their own. They can't find them on their own. I mean, what's wrong with that? Another one on failure to establish the gain settings used on the power range neutron monitoring system in accordance with design requirements. I mean, design requirements. They have a design and they can't translate like that into the plant configuration. All the time they have these kinds of things on there. How come over and over again the agency, I mean, it's not just at energy, it's happening all over the industry with these guys. Involved the failure to correct a situation adverse to quality in a timely manner. Specifically, the licensee failed to correct multiple degraded conditions associated with building water intrusion barrier. In Palisades, they had troubles with their roof and stuff. I could go into problems with the roof problems and how they've caused terrible plant accidents and stuff like that. So, how come, why does the NRC have to identify that? Why can't the energy itself discover that and fix it before the agency comes in and the agency bangs them? All the time it happens, and it just they don't. The energy doesn't have enough horsepower to make these guys scared of them, afraid of them, and they just do it over and over again, knowing that there will be no consequences. Failure to monitor performance of the auxiliary building water intrusion. There's another one on that. Had experienced a maintenance rule functional failure and required further evaluation to determine if the barrier should be classified as 10. They weren't even following their own procedures on the maintenance rule with their roofs. During the refueling outage 18 extended power uprate, the licensees did not adequately plan and control work activities for the design and replacement of the new fuel pool cooling pump heat exchangers. As far as controlling their employees on installation of equipment, it's all over the place. A non-cited violation of technical specification, blah blah. Failure to comply with radiological exposure control specified in work permit 2012 1402. High floor refuel floor high water activity. Why does the NRC have to catch them with that kind of stuff? So that's Grand Gulf, right? Grand Gulf, right? Grand Gulf. Grand Gulf. Yep, Grand Gulf. And let's do Cooper next. Let's see what's going on with Cooper. Identified non-cited violation of technical specification, inadequate maintenance procedure, service water, column maintenance, and bowl assembly replacement. Specifically, those procedures not address a number of required temporary heaters and required power sources due to loss of off-site power during design basis cold weather temperatures of -5 degrees Fahrenheit, with the service water pump room hatches removed, the floors open during maintenance. You know, basic stuff, basic engineering, basic protecting your plant for the environmental conditions that are around the plant, you know. During a loss of off-site power during design basis cold water or weather temperature. So you know they're trying to fix something, but they have no controls. They have no procedures to help the people. Say, you know, if you take the hatches out, then you gotta have heaters to protect that equipment. The service water, vital to the emergency diesel generators, and you know, it's just mind-boggling that a plant doesn't have them procedures, hasn't had them procedures for 20 years. Requirements for identify another violation for requirement for monitoring the effectiveness of maintenance at nuclear power. Specifically, the licensee failed to properly consider the availability of reactor building, diesel generated building, control more roof drains when evaluating whether the performance condition is effectively controlled. Nothing, you know, they don't have an inspection to go up on the roof and make sure everything is there's no clog, there's no systematic way to make sure the roof drains don't clog and collapse the roofs. Specifically, another one, and specifically the licensee failed to identify and remove foreign material from the diesel generator roof, which would have interfered with the roof's ability to drain and remove scuppers during a flooding event. You know, Palisades is all about their roof leaking, and I mean, they knew that a roof is a it's a safety barrier. You know, if it's above the diesel generator, it's a safety barrier. It's a safety device designed to prevent damage to the emergency diesel generator. It's the same thing as in the reactor building and all their associated motor control centers and breaker cabinets. Specifically, and another one. Specifically, the inspector identified the licensee had failed to consider all relevant information when assessing operability of diesel generator 2 support by surface water system Div 2 surface water hatches to remove a strainer, you know, blah 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 at 5 degrees, you know. Specifically, the licensee failed to ensure the unused flushing ports on the service water booster pump casing were either welded or not installed during procurement. You know, it's simple thing is you don't want you don't want a bunch of ports, you know, that could fail. Seen a new one. Failure to follow the requirements of station procedure .5 CR condition report initiative review and classification Rev 19 and enter conditions of versatile quality in the station's corrective action program. Specifically, the station personnel perform walk-downs for the temporary instruction inspection of near-term Task Force recommendations 2.2 flooding, 2.3 flooding walkdowns, failed to initiate condition reports for degraded or non-conforming conditions as they were identified. So you know they had this task force to following Fukushima, and they failed to document degraded conditions. You know, that simple things. Why does the NRC have? Why is this NRC in there? You know, holding their hands and backstopping them and all that sort of stuff. Why can't these guys do this on their own? And the more they depend upon the agency, right? The more they get into that pattern and stuff like that. You know, it's an acceptable practice, and we can do it. You know, we don't care what we're doing, you know, because the NRC just going to tell us, catch us on it, and they'll only ding us, and it won't be very painful, and we can do it over and over again, you know. So what is the incentive to change? Standards for protection, self-speed revealing non-cited violation, standards for protecting against radiation, blah blah blah. You know, they didn't do perform a adequate radiation survey, determine and evaluate radiological hazards workers could be exposed if they're planned working activity. You know, you just wonder if Energy didn't know that was going on, and they don't have they don't document it. The people aren't aware of what's going on, and they don't document, and they have to depend upon the agency to document their crap. There's something wrong with being overly dependent upon the agency to do your work for you. Another guy didn't follow radiation protection procedure. Adequate radiological survey. You know, when an agency, let me tell you something. When an agency starts doing this with the radiation business, it means the plant has had fuel failures. When they bang them over and over again with the non-cited violations and all that sort of stuff with radiological stuff, that means they're getting sloppy, and they probably crapped up their plant with fuel failures of some sort or another. Mark my words on that. Take it to the bank. And so did we get Grant Cooper? Did we do Arkansas? I don't think we did Arkansas yet. Maybe we did. Arkansas. This is the 9. How many is it? Arkansas's got 9. Cooper's got 11, and Grand Gulf's got 8. So Arkansas. We're doing Arkansas. The last one. Hang with me. Didn't provide a adequate boric acid evaluation on the reactor makeup water pipe located in the overhead of the Train B charging room. You know, this is Davis-Besse stuff. And then another violation is specifically a maintenance tag out for maintenance on the Unit 2 low pressure safety injector header C incorrectly specified. The reactor coolant system level should be less than 70 inches to work on the low pressure safety injector header components, result in loss of reactor coolant system inventory. Here's another one. Here's the this is the one for the Unit 2 condenser vacuum pump solenoid valves. We've talked about more than it's getting old. Anyways, another one, which states in part that design changes include field changes shall be subject to design control measures commensurate with those applied to the original design. Specifically on October 4th, that failed to ensure that design change which directed a permanent removal of check valves, blah blah blah, from the surface water return lines, related auxiliary building, electrical room chillers, included the requisite evaluation of initial design bases and mitigating safety system functions of these components. They took out or put in these components, and they didn't check their initial plant designs to make sure it stayed with the basic stuff, and it's just sloppy. It's sloppy nuclear industry practices, and it reflects bad on your credibility and your reputation. And here's a good one. Here's a good one. Integrity of the examination and test for failure of the licensee to ensure the integrity of the Unit 2 licensed operator biannual or whatever the hell it is, written examinations. People could see the exam through elevated windows, and they could watch their computer system and watch what the guys were looking at and infer what the question was. Cheating on the exams. They gave them they didn't catch them, but it gave them the opportunity to cheat on the exams if somebody was failure to provide sufficient work instruction on a maintenance activity on main feed water regulations. Weren't following the procedures, and repaired the pump the valve inappropriately. We repaired it in the wrong manner. He wasn't following the directions, and he screwed up. Identified 2 examples of which requires the component classified as ASME code 1 and 2, 3 meet the requirements set forth on the boiler and pressure code and agenda, whatever it is. In-service examination of the components to be conducted during successive 120-month inspection intervals and comply with the requirements of the latest edition and agenda of the code applicable to specific contrary to above, prior to September 17th for Class 2 and 3 reactor vessel flange leak-off lines for both 1 and 2, the licensee failed to perform leakage tests at the system pressure obtained while the system was performing its normal functions. They cheating on a test. That's what it comes down to. Cheating on a test on the primary containment barrier test. To see if it was leaking. A worker wasn't respectful for a high radiation area. That's another violation. So those are the kind of, a lot of this stuff isn't extraordinarily they got caught with their pants down. This is day-to-day simple stuff that energies should be able to catch on their own, and they haven't. They weren't monitoring their own employees, and the NRC caught them on all these different violations. And it happens over and over again. Again, as far as the ROP and stuff like that, the agency doesn't have enough horsepower so that they can say, we're just not going to waste. We're not going to waste our time on finding all these non-cited violations on you. It takes us away from more important stuff as far as more important violations and looking into for other violations and stuff like that. And all these non-reported, non-cited violations are a burden to the agency. It consumes our resources unnecessarily and interferes with a regulatory function, and the agency doesn't have the horsepower to make an incentive to energy to change their tune. In other words, what changes their tune? What tools do they have? And the only thing, there's negative incentives and positive incentives. I don't know if there's too many positives and incentives that would. But as far as negative incentives, usually, they pay a price for one thing. Somebody gets an employee gets charged with a violation, or the company gets charged with a violation. They're either forced to shut down for a while, or they pay a huge fine, or they get into the public's eye and stuff like that. I don't know what's it take. What's it going to take for energy to change their tack. You know, what is it going to change? What will they big enough that'll scare the pants off energy, and then they come up, then they come on their own and say it's time to, something's going on here wrong, and you people, all these employees, you have to pay attention a lot more closer, and you have to monitor yourself, and not let the NRC catch you on all these violations and stuff like that. I mean, how does the agency, instead of just keeping their mouth shut and thinking, well, we're cycling them through the ROP and they're non-cited violations, and there's nothing we can do. We're following the procedure, and there's nothing we can do to stop all these violations that are consuming agency resources. Thank you.